Hey everybody, Jwah here. For my, I'm gonna make a quick Shadow Priest guide for everyone that wants to watch. I'm gonna cover a couple things in my guide. I'm gonna go through the talents. I'm gonna go through my gear. I'm gonna go through my add-ons, macros, and also some of the comps that I currently play that I think is really good, and some of the strategy for them. All right, let's just dive right in. So for talents. Everyone's been asking me about talents, so this is kind of a big topic. I tested a lot of talents, and based on my own playtesting, this is the current version of the talents that I kind of landed with. I'm just gonna reset them and kind of just walk you guys through, I guess, my reasoning for picking these talents. So for the Shadow Tree side, obviously it's pretty standard. You want to take Devouring Plague. There's not really a choice. You know, go take your Dispersion, get Short Disperse for extra survivability. Take Shadow Apparition because you don't really have much choice in this area, and then take Silence, get your Stun, get your Misery for the extra dots on your VTs. On your, it saves you a lot of globals, so it's good. Go down to Orbs. Get Puppet Master. This talent is really, really good because it buffs your Mind Spikes and Mind Blasts. I probably don't need to explain the reasoning for most of these talents because I'm sure you guys have a good understanding at this point if you play Shadow Beast. Take Mind Spike, get the Mind Spike proc, and then get the excuse me, the Mind Blast faster cast with Mind Spike, and then get Unfurling Darkness, Shadow Crash, Shadow Insight, take Dark Ascension. So some people's been asking me why I take Dark Ascension over Void Eruption is because right now you want to focus on a 1 minute go. Instead of having a 2 minute cooldown of Void Eruption, because you want to combo Dark Ascension with Mindbender. It's really, really strong. And if you play 2 minute Void Eruption, you can't really do that. It doesn't combo as well. So you definitely want to just take Dark Ascension. And it's also just more damage than Void Eruption. Another reason why you want to take Dark Ascension over Void Eruption is that it procs Ancient Madness, your crit talent, and you can proc this way more if you're playing Dark Ascension. And you play Auspicious Spirit over Tormented Spirit, and the reason why is because it allows you to generate way more insanity, especially into comps like pet comps like Demo Warlocks and DKs, which are really popular specs right now. So this talent is definitely way better than Tormented Spirit in my opinion, because you want to get more insanity for Devouring Plagues. And then I like to take Harness Shadows and also Maddening Touch because I realize Harness Shadows is actually a really good talent because it allows you to generate more orbs in between your Mind Benders, which is really important actually, because majority of your damage comes from Mind Spikes and Mind Blasts. Like, Mind Spike is always my 4th in damage, so more Shadow Orbs is always good right now. And then you want to take Mindbender because Mindbender allows you to proc a lot of Shadow Orbs during your go. So you want a Mindbender, and then you want to spam your Mind Spike and Mind Blast procs into them because that's just a lot of burst damage on during your go. So people have been asking me why I don't take Inescapable Torment anymore, and that's because a lot of times when you're fighting like high-rated teams, not only do you get CC'd a lot during your Mindbender, they also nerfed this talent because Yasraj got nerfed. Because Yasraj got nerfed from 15 to 5%, it's not really worth taking this talent anymore. So without this talent, basically Inescapable Torment got nerfed by 15%. So you don't really want to, for me personally, I do not like this talent anymore. It just doesn't feel like it does enough damage. And then I always take Encroaching Shadows because Devouring Plague is like my top #1 damage every single game. So this talent is very important, and you should always take this. And I really like Mind Devourer because Devouring Plague right now is my top damage every single game, and getting more DPs from Mind Blast is like super valuable. So you should. So I really value this talent. I think it's really good. And another talent that I think is really important is Damnation. Having 30-second Damnation, I feel like is a must right now. Damnation is so good. Not only does it apply your dots instantly, it also applies a Devouring Plague, which is really valuable. It's your #1 damage. So here's kind of the thing. Here's kind of where things get tricky, right? People's been asking me why I take N'Zoth. So the reason why I take N'Zoth is because I'm kind of left as one talent point, and if I don't take N'Zoth, there's not really another talent that's really better. So there's a couple variations that you can try if you want to. Is you can take out N'Zoth and Harness Shadows, and then you can put 2 points in Psychic Link if you feel like you like that talent more. I personally don't like Psychic Link. I played around it, and it just doesn't feel like it gives me enough like real damage. Like obviously it's like a little patty damage, but it just doesn't feel like it's significant enough. So I don't like to play Psychic Link. So this is kind of my talent of choice currently for the Shadow tree side. And then for the class tree side, obviously you need to take Dispel Magic, right? Fear, Fade, Remove Slow, all really good talents. Take Mind Control. Void Tendrils is really good. I really enjoy playing Void Tendrils pretty much every game. There's a lot of use there's a lot of plays you can make with Void Tendrils. And then take Feathers. Take the Leap of Faith, of course. So right now I take the Death and Madness for the double execute. This isn't the most valuable talent, but unfortunately you have to take this to kind of move on to the next part of your tree. And then take Power Infusion Ally. This talent is really strong. Take the short reduce cooldown on your Life Grip. This is really good. Take MD and Fast MD, which I think is pretty standard. Take Vampiric Embrace, and Vampiric brings reset and also more healing. So Vampiric Embrace got nerfed a couple times, and it doesn't heal as much as it used to, but it's still really good. I find is because it's free healing. Like it doesn't cost mana to heal, and I think that's really valuable right now because mana is you run out of mana very easily, and if you run out of mana, you can't Master Spell your healer out of CC. So I think it's really good to have this right now. And another talent I personally value a lot that I don't think a lot of other Shadow Priests value is the Mind Blast Crit Reduced Movement Speed. I think this talent is super OP, and you can do a lot with it. Because Shadow Priests lack like you don't have a lot of slews as Shadow Priests. During your go, if you stun like a healer, like if you crit a healer or something, or any DPS, they're just stuck. They can't move. And that allows you to get your damage off. So I think that's really good. Take the Pain talent because you kind of have to go into mind games, of course. And then, so I like to go into Angel's Mercy, which I think is really strong right now. Because it resets your Desperate Prayer when you take damage. And if I'm getting trained by like melee or whatever at this point, like the CD on my Desperate Prayer is like literally 30 seconds or something. So this is gonna do a lot of healing for me. And another thing I like about it is the fact that it's free. It costs no mana. So this will also save you a lot of mana. So you don't have to be sitting there like spamming shields, which is a really bad habit for a lot of priests. Like they over spam shields and they run out of mana, and then they can't Master Spell their healer and stuff or their teammates. I only take 1 point into mind games because I feel like I don't use mind games. More like I don't use mind games that much. Like I think a 45-second mind games is good enough for me, and I save 3 points here. 25% more damage on mind games might seem good, but it's only probably like a 20 to 30k damage increase or 20 to 30k damage increase if it crits. And I feel like spending 3 points for like a 20 to 30k more damage is not worth it for me. So I'd rather take more survivability talents to allow me to live better. Take the Fade Reduce Damage talent. This talent is so good. This talent is very, very good. Like 10% doesn't seem like a lot, but it stacks with your focus roll, so you're basically at like I don't know what the math is, but you know, around like 25% damage reduction when you use this every 20 seconds. So if you can pre-fade a stun or something, it's very, very valuable. And obviously, you know, life swap or voice shift is excuse me, it's pretty self-explanatory. Like that's pretty mandatory, I think, and it's pretty important in most comps. Okay, I have 2 points here. Where did I put these 2 points? Kind of forgot. Where did I put these 2 points? Okay, I'm gonna have to reset my tree because I kind of forgot where I put. Oh, right here. Twisted Fate. Twisted Fate is really good talent. It just increases your damage when they drop below 35%. The 10% extra damage makes a huge difference when you're trying to kill them. So yeah, so this is kind of my talents right now. If you have any questions, definitely find me on my stream and I can explain a little bit more in detail on my choices. But this is basically my standard talents, and I pretty much play this every single game. I rarely switch them. They're very like, I play this in solo shuffle, 3v3, like pretty much every comp that I play, and I've been finding good success with it. So I'm gonna keep playing it until I feel like there's something better. Okay, what's the next thing I'm gonna talk about? I'm gonna talk about... Okay, so for gear, right now, Shadow Priest gear, in my opinion, I think the two set piece, which I got really lucky that I have 2 weeks in. You want to play, you 100% want to play the 2 piece, and I do think the 4 piece is also worth it, but you have to make sure you gem and enchant versatility, because majority of your set piece doesn't have versatility on it, so you're going to be missing some verse. So you just want to make sure you gem and enchant verse. I currently don't have enchants that are verse right now because I'm only running 2 piece, but once I get 4 piece, I'm definitely going to run more verse. And in terms of stat priority, it's verse first, then haste, then mastery is the stat. And then for trinkets, you want to run the proc trinket, and then insignia, or medallion, the PvP trinket if you're not playing human. But if you're playing human, you can run the honor haste trinket, which is going to give you a lot more extra damage. And the on-use also lines up with your Shadow Fiend, so it gives you a lot more burst potential if you're playing human. And in terms of race, you want to play for Alliance, you want to play human, you want to play Dark Iron Dwarf, and then you also want to play Night Elf. All those 3 races are good enough for PvP. Yo, thank you, Palmer, for the raid, by the way. I'm just making my guide right now, so kind of talking to myself. Okay, so we covered gear, we covered talents, and also, sorry, for enchants, you want to get Sophic Devotion, which is the intellect enchant. It will give you the most damage. People ask me if the haste enchant is good. I think the haste enchant is okay, but you'll probably do more damage with the Sophic Devotion intellect because, you know, it's the PB enchant, and I'm sure the PBers know what they're doing, and, you know, I'm not going to argue with that. And then I like to enchant speed into my other, like, cloak and stuff, and it gives me 10% more movement speed to allow me to kite better. I think that's very valuable to have speed. You can also enchant avoidance if you want to be more tanky into like demon hunters or a bunch of those classes that have like AoE spells. So avoidance is also a good enchant. Okay, but in terms of, so we talked about gear, we talked about talents. So the add-ons that I currently use for Arena, there's a couple add-ons that I think is really good. So big debuffs. This will allow you to track like the important debuffs on yourself and on your teammates. For example, like if your healer gets kidneyed or something, it's going to prioritize the kidney shot and make it really big and allows you to see it. So definitely a mandatory add-on for for arena. Another add-on that's really cool is details. So this add-on allows me to see like my damage breakdown and also like death logs if your teammate dies or something. So it allows you to analyze your game and see if you can increase your damage or you can allow you to min-max. So definitely a really good add-on as well. So other add-ons that I have is, so this add-on is called nameplate buffs. It's like the new version of an older add-on called fly play buffs. This add-on allows you to see your like dots and stuff on the target, and also you'll see like cooldowns as well, enemy cooldowns. It'll show enemy cooldowns on the nameplates. So super good add-on for Shadow Priest because you know you're dotting a lot of targets, so you want to see dots on them, and this add-on is going to allow you to do that. Another add-on that I find really useful is called Nug Totem Icon. Basically what this add-on does is when you're fighting shamans and stuff, it's going to highlight, like it's going to put the totem icon on top of the totem, which I think is very valuable because if you're fighting like, if you're trying to like bait a tremor totem or something, it makes the tremor totem much easier to see. So very useful for Shadow Priest. The next add-on is called Omnibar. So this add-on tracks like enemy cooldowns. So for example, like interrupts, you know, like their Avenging Wrath or Red Paladins or like Darks. I guess Warlocks don't even have Darks anymore, but like basically like any offensive cooldown and all the interrupts as well. So very useful. You do have to customize this a little bit for yourself to like put. You have to set it up a little bit. So like the location of those add-ons, like where they pop up and stuff. So, but very mandatory, I would say. And Omni City is also very useful. It tracks the cooldown of your party members, so you know if your shaman has like Spirit Link and stuff. You know, that way it's easier to communicate. Like you don't have to communicate, you can just see if they have cooldowns or not. So very useful as well. The other add-ons, so I use S Arena over Gladius. I just find S Arena cleaner for me, but you know, it's personal preference. If you like Gladius better, then you can use Gladius over S Arena. It doesn't really matter. So the other add-on that I have is Unit Frame Improved. This is just a UI add-on, like you don't really need this. It just makes my UI look a little cleaner, like my character portrait look a little cleaner. And it also shows class color for my targeting, which I really like. So other than that, okay, so Weakra, right? This is like the most broken add-on you can get, not only in PvP but also in PvE, right? I'm sure everyone's familiar with Weakra at this point. So the only thing about Weakra is that you have to import some Weakras, obviously, from other people. And the best Weakra right now to get is the Mez package. So if you just go on the Weakra website and just search up Mez, you'll just find the Mez package. And the Mez package basically has all the Weakras that you basically need at this, like all the Weakras you need at this point. So for example, like if you're getting like, if the rogue is like popping like death mark on you or something, right? Normally it would be like hard to see, but if you have this Weakra, it's gonna pop up a notification and be like, oh, death mark. So it allows you to see like the cooldowns easier. It's not like mandatory, but it makes arena a lot easier. And it's very broken. So definitely a must. Lastly, I have another add-on that is not really mandatory for arena, but it's just really nice. It's called Reflex. It just tracks like your like wins and stuff and like stats on your arena, which you can use to like analyze like, hey, like what's my win rate versus a certain comp and stuff, right? It's just helpful. It tracks your rating as well, like your win-loss and stuff. So it's not mandatory, obviously, but it's just nice to have if you're playing arena. I think I really like this add-on. It's just like a nice bonus. It allows me to like track my stats and stuff and see which comps I'm winning and losing to. So it's pretty nice. And then okay, so we talked about add-ons. What's next? So we talked about add-ons. Okay, so next thing I want to talk about is my macros. So macros, I have a shitload of macros. I don't use all of them, obviously, but obviously the most important macros I want to talk about is focus macros and also arena 123 macros. For Shadow Priest, I think this is very, very mandatory and very, very important. It makes your play much more efficient. So I currently use arena 123 stuns and also arena 123 silence. I think this is very, very important for Shadow Priest. I mean, you don't have to do this, but I think it's very important because a lot of times it just gives you a lot of flexibility on how you want to play. Like, for example, your teammate's dying or something, you're like, oh shit. Like, instead of fumbling around with like your focus targeting, you can just like, oh, stun arena 3, silence arena 1, right? You can just press it a lot more efficiently and then fumbling around with your focus macros. So I think that's very important. I personally use life swap as well as life grip macros on my teammates. You don't have to because it's a lot of binds, but I do think this is very important for Shadow Priest if you want to take your Shadow Priest play to the next level, is have life swap macros and also life grip macros for your teammates. It, like, instead of just like trying to click your teammates and just like panicking and stuff and try to life swap and like grip them and like you're misclicking and shit, you just press your bind and you know you just get it instantly. Like, you'll see a lot of high rated Shadow Priests like grip important things like kidney shots, like when rogues use smoke bomb or something. These macros allow you to react fast enough to do that. The other macros that I have is like, oh, so this is a really popular macro that people's been asking me about, is my siphoning macro. So what it does is it's just an all-in-one siphon / shield macro. So you just press your siphon one time, and then you press it again, and it'll automatically shield your siphon. So it'll save you a bind or something to like, it'll just save you space. So this is a very good macro to have. The other macro that I have is just like basically power infusion my teammates. Because you're running the double PI talent, so you want to make sure you always PI your other DPS. That's pretty standard, I think. Other than that, I don't really have any other macros I think that's that important. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the mandatory macros. Everything else like is pretty like personal preference, I would say. You don't really need them. You can make your own macros and stuff. Okay, so we talked about macros. So the next thing I want to talk about, guys, is comps. So right now for Shadow Priest comps, I've been playing a lot of different comps right now, and it feels like Shadow Priest is one of those classes that just basically works in any comp right now. Like, there's not really a bad comp that you can play with a Shadow Priest, because our class is like jack of all trades right now, and so it's definitely a good time to be playing Shadow Priest. You're going to be very popular. But in terms of the comps that I've been having success with, I play a lot of comps with Archshamans, so Wrestler Shamans. I'll kind of just talk about, I guess I'll talk about the ones that I think are really good and easy to play for like beginner Shadow Priest players or Shadow Priest players that are learning. So the really good Shadow Priest comps right now are Demo Lock Shadow Priest, Affliction Lock Shadow Priest, Demon Hunter Shadow Priest, and what else? Demon Hunter Shadow Priest, Rogue Shadow Priest, of course. So I think these 4 comps right now are your probably most broken and easy to play Shadow Priest comps. And you can play these comps with any healer, like any of the top healers. So basically Archams, Druids, Evokers. Probably okay with the H-Spell, but H-Spell is not as good right now, unfortunately, in the current meta. And also Mistweaver Monks are unfortunately also kind of weak right now. So definitely stick with Druids, Archams, and Evokers right now if you want to do well. And in terms of other comps that you can play, so like there's some other comps that's also good, but they take a bit more skill to execute because they're not as OP. So like Arms Warrior Shadow Priest can work. Feral Druid Shadow Priests, BM Hunter Shadow Priests. All these comps are I have had success with these comps, but they're just harder to play. So I wouldn't recommend them. But if you feel like you have good teammates and or you just have friends that you want to play with, these comps will also work as well. But basically, like I said, any Shadow Priest comp right now it will be, you'll do really well with them. Like, it's hard to not do well, I think. Okay, let's talk about strats a little bit, because people's been asking me about strats. I don't know how I want to really approach this. Maybe I'm trying to think how I want to kind of go through strats a little bit. Okay, I think I'll just divide it up into melee Shadow Priest and double caster. How about that? I think that sounds kind of reasonable. So basically, in terms of strategies, if you're playing with double caster, you just want to obviously do as much damage as you can. So for example, if you're playing with the Demon Warlock or Affliction Warlock, you want to position away from your teammates. You don't want to stack, and just kind of like slowly whittle your enemy team or your enemy down. Like, you just want to sit back, do a lot of damage. When they push in, that's when you kind of use your stun and you know, your silence and stuff to set up. I find that a lot of people try to force goes too much. If the enemy's like Bandit Pillar or something, they'll just run in Bandit Pillar and like try to force goes. But if you're playing double caster, just sit back, like, and just, you know, cast behind in the open, and just do as much damage as you can, because they're gonna be losing mana, and then you guys have all the positioning in the world to kind of, you know, you have a lot of space to play with. So definitely don't try to overforce as a double caster. And then in terms of strategies for melee Shadow Priest, so melee Shadow Priest is definitely more tricky to play depending on the comps you're playing against. Because you know, you're playing with another melee, so you have to, sometimes you really have to just push in. But depending on the team you're fighting, for example, you're fighting like a double melee team that's training you, what you want to do is you want to try to force the enemy team away from the enemy healer. So for example, if like the healer is like sitting behind a let's pretend this dummies, or let's pretend this tree's a pillar or something. Enemy healer's like kind of doing this, right? They're like weaning in and out of the pillar and just like healing their melee cleave. So when you see that happening, what you want to do as a Shadow Priest is you want to try to pull really far back. So that will allow you to, that will like make sure, that will like basically force the healer out of the pillar, and allow you to allow your melee to be able to hit them and CC them. So basically you want to drag the enemy melee DPS out of position, and then you can punish them with a lot of damage. And another question that people have been asking me is like, how do I do damage while I'm getting trained? So a good way to do it is, so right now you have so much tools to do damage. Like, you don't have to cast at all. I don't think Shadow Priest has ever had this many like instant cast abilities to do damage. So you shouldn't have any issues doing damage against melee team. So for example, one thing I'll try to do is, this is kind of like a trick that I like to do as a Shadow Priest, is that when a melee is coming at me, I'm gonna try recasting some like vampiric touches to base some kicks before I use all my instant casts. For example, like Damnation and your Unfurling Darkness instant cast and your Shadow Crash. So before I use all my instant casts, I try to pre-bait some kicks. So if I can pre-base some kicks, perfect, because it basically sets me up for later. So don't just like, you know, fucking run in and just instantly chop your Damnation and like your Shadow Crash and your instant cast VT. Like, try to be a little bit more conservative with them. Obviously it's all situational. Sometimes it's better to just dump it all at the beginning, but you wanna make a good habit out of just try to pre-casting some VTs and base some kicks with it if you can. Like, what I'll do is like, I'll try to bait a kick. If they don't kick, I'll just, you know, cast a Damnation afterwards. So always try to bait some kicks while you're doing your like weaving your instant cast. You know what I mean? And then if you don't really have anything to cast, if you don't have any damage to cast, spam the spell. The spell is so broken right now. Always be spamming it, especially against Evokers, Arshams, and Druids. Like, basically every healer, you want to just be spamming Purge. Purging is so good. So a lot of times, like, you don't even need to be doing damage. You're spamming, you like put your dots up and you're just spamming Purge. And for your burst, what you want to do is you want to use your Mindbender, right? And then your Power Infusion, and then your Dark Ascension. And once you have these up, you want to be spamming your Devouring Plagues and also your Mind Blast procs and whatever else proc that you get. So that'll be like mostly your Mind Spike procs, right? So when you're doing your burst, you're basically just spamming your procs with Mind Benders, because basically what this build is all about is that you... Let me bring up my talents here once I get out combat here really quick. Okay, just give me 1 second. So basically the way this build works is that Mindbender is going to proc a lot of Shadow Orbs. Basically every melee hit from Mindbender is going to proc a Shadow Orb. And then because you have spells like Shadow Crash on multiple targets, especially into DKs and Demon Warlocks, you're going to get infinite procs, like infinite Mind Spike procs. You're going to get so many. So basically you don't even need to cast at all. So you're going to pop your Mindbender, you know, your Dark Ascension, and then because you have the Dark Ascension crit talent, when you pop Dark Ascension, you have like 20% crit at the beginning. And then you're just spamming fucking your DPs, your Mind Spike procs into the target, and that's your burst. And Mind Spike is really good right now. It can crit up to 80,000, so definitely really big damage. So yeah, so that's basically kind of how you do damage while you're getting trained. You have so many options with instant casts. And another thing you can do is that if you want to get your mind games off, what you can do is ask your teammate to obviously stun for you, right? If you're playing with a rogue or something, you're going to stun the main target. And then if you feel like there's another melee that's hitting you that also has a kick, and you really want to get this mind games on, for example, what you can do is you can stun the other melee target and then silence the healer at the same time, and then cast your mind games. So that's another way to kind of get around some of the interrupts while you're doing a burst. Or you can, or another trick you can do is you can fear the enemy and then silence the healer so they can't get dispelled, and then you get your cast off. So here's just some tricks that you can do to try to get your casts. And another thing about living as melee cleaves is just making sure that you're using your fade and your feathers at the right time. So for example, if you're like playing around a corner or something, and there's a melee cleave training, what you can do is drop feather and fade at the same time. That's gonna remove our snares, and you just sprint away, and then you just kind of, you know, kite away around a corner. So that's going to allow you to kind of get away for a second and allow your healer to top you, and you know, so definitely take advantage of pillars and your positioning for sure. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I want to add to this guide in terms of strategies. I think I'm gonna keep this guide kind of short and sweet. I feel like it's already covered enough information for this guide, but I'll do some other guides that specifically talks about like positioning and also like how to do damage, how to maximize your damage and stuff. I think that I'll just keep it separate. I'll make it easier. All right, but thanks for watching, and make sure to like and subscribe, whatever. And if you have any questions, find me on my stream. I stream basically every night around, I don't know what, around 9 Mountain Time. So find me on my stream. If you have any questions, definitely just ask me on my stream. I'll make sure to answer. I always make sure to answer my questions. But oh, sorry. Actually, one thing I just remembered: PvP talents. That's an important thing to add. So right now, the 3 PvP talents I think is mandatory is Void Origins, because you basically never want to be casting Dark Ascension during your go. It just feels too awkward. You never want to cast Dark Ascension because you might get kicked or something or whatever. It's just too annoying. Like you just want to have the instant Dark Ascension. And Siphoned, Siphon I feel like is self-explanatory. This button is so good, right? With the Siphon macro, you can Siphon and then you can shield it, which makes it harder to kill. 50% MS. I guess the quick way how to use Siphon correctly is that people ask me is like, there's 3 ways I use Siphon. One is obviously you want to try to use Siphon when the enemy healer is about to heal a lot. So for example, if your target is like 50% or something, and the healer's coming out of CC, you want to use Siphon then. Basically, you don't want to use Siphon unless you know they're gonna heal a lot. You don't want to just like waste it. I see a lot of Shadow Priests just like sending it on their go and like not be mindful about it, but you definitely want to be more mindful about how the way you use Siphon. Like try to min-max it, right? Like try to use it when they're about to heal instead of just like throwing it out like it's nothing. Another way I use Siphon is I use it as a distraction. So basically, it's basically like a lizard dropping their tail. So for example, you're getting trained really hard, you're gonna die. You just fucking drop a Siphon, and it's gonna distract the enemy for a second. Like, oh, it's a Siphon, I gotta kill this. So it's gonna tank like a couple hits for you. So that's like another way to kind of use Siphon. And another way to use Siphon is to peel your teammates. So for example, like your healer is getting absolutely destroyed, and then you stand really far away, and you drop a Siphon on the enemy, and that might distract the enemy team for a second to allow your healer to get away. Like I see Demon Hunters do this all the time. Like I'll drop a Siphon on them, let max change, and they'll just like fly all the way over to my Siphon and try to kill it, and that's gonna give me a healer. That's gonna give my healer a second to kind of heal up. So that's basically the 3 ways I use Siphoned. So the third talent that I like to use is Catharsis. Because Void Volley got nerfed, I feel like it doesn't really do any damage anymore, so don't take this for damage. And other thing is that it's nerfed to 2 seconds, so it doesn't really proc as much. So I find this talent pretty much useless into most teams that I fight. Catharsis is really broken right now. It does so much damage. So definitely take Catharsis over Void Volley. Unless you're fighting like some kind of setup comp, like a rogue mage, like a sub rogue or something, you can take Void Volley instead of Catharsis. But other than that, like you always want to take Catharsis, because if you look at these games, like even the games where I'm not even getting hit a lot, Catharsis is really high up in my damage meter, like always like 4th or something. So this talent is really broken. Okay, so that's basically everything I think I want to cover in this guide. So thank you for watching. Make sure to follow or sub to my YouTube channel, I guess, since I'm gonna upload this to YouTube, and catch me on my stream. I'm streaming a lot, so definitely catch me on stream. Ask me any questions.